things, the ecology and biology of them, to make sure you kill them efficiently. And that is what you want to do when you're doing plants. So the first step is know your enemy. Yeah, you have to know your enemy well. And this is the fun part about it, is learning all about what your enemy does. So plant identification is a long thing. I started off, of course, not knowing a single plant. I got out here in '94. I could identify certain things that I'd seen in Pennsylvania and knew that that was the same genus, but otherwise I knew very few plants. It turns out there are 3 or 4 plants in Pennsylvania that are also here. Same plant exactly, but most of them are different. And I was told when I got out here, oh, all you do is look at it, and if you know the genus, call it Californica. And you're probably right. So the best way to do this is pick a place to go and look at plants. They don't usually move around. You come week after week, find the very same plant. Watch their life cycles and their forms as they change during the season. Flowering season, dormant season. Understands the plant's characteristics. Is it a perennial? Is it an annual? And get books and keys. Also, there are lots of things on the web that you can use. I am an old school person. I use books, but I see people now with all these apps using them, and they seem to work quite well. And use experts, websites. We're out there. I love to identify plants for people. So, and locations for volunteering. Most of our local land is under management already, but there are lots of programs which you can get involved in. I have the Edgewood Weeders. It's every Friday during the entire year. And there's also, during daylight savings time, we have a Wednesday evening group that goes out. So if you really wanted to go get us, you can go to the Friends of Edgewood.org and find us, and we can get you signed up and take you out. We are an advanced program, meaning we have been doing it for 35 years now, it will be. And that means that we're on the point where sometimes the weeds are very few, which is nice. But it does mean that when you go out there, you won't expect to see a wall of weeds that you can just sit down and pull all day and make a few feet of progress. We move around to try and find them. And we do it all year round, so you have to know all of them in all the different stages to be able to take them out. So, but if you want to try it, it's fun. I've had lots of people come out, and recent volunteers have become regulars. So I only had a couple of them say, I don't feel like I'm doing anything, and they never come back. So
can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
So,
anybody can interrupt me.
So we just started a monthly getting rid of weeds at all the parks in Belmont.
Yep.
And so we did it for the first time, and I was kind of the lead, and people were asking me, is this a weed? Is that a weed? And tell you the truth, I didn't know. So it would have been nice to have you or somebody like that there.
Yes,
sometimes
exactly.
It's obvious, but sometimes we're like, I'm not sure, let's leave it. So yeah, so I think it's important. I was trying to figure out how best to maybe print out things that have pictures of weeds on it or what. So
I will show you
find
things.
out how you do that. Great.
It is really, really a skill, but I've worked very hard to actually learn what they look like as soon as they come up from seed. And I'll have a few pictures of that. I've had people tell me, you're not going to get people to go out and kill these little seedlings. They're just too small. But I did. My weeders do it. So, and that gives you a big season. From the moment they come up to the moment they're dead, you're killing them. Yeah, get in and find out what the plans and strategies, because every weed group has different things that they're trying to accomplish. Know as much as you can about the target plants. That takes time to learn. My plant that I know more about than any other plant is yellow star thistle. I know all about that one. And learn about integrated pest management. That's called a process of solving pest problems while minimizing the risk to people and the environment. There are lots of different ways to kill the weeds. Some of them are using herbicides, pulling, and you have to sometimes use multiple things to really keep these weeds under control or take them under control. So first we'll go to the lifestyle of plants. Here we have a picture of an annual on the left, a biannual in the center, and a perennial on the right. To tell you what these are, that's yellow star thistle is the annual. This is poison hemlock is the biannual, and the perennial is oblong spurge, a fairly recent weed. Okay, an annual is a plant that lives less than 1 year or season. There is one annual we have where there's some overlap between the plants from last year and the seeds coming up, but most of them are good and dead by the time the seed bank or the seeds start coming up in the wet season. Winter annuals are our common annuals. They start in the winter and they die either before summer as it dries out, or they can make it all the way to the fall. But by that time, they're gone. One of the characteristics is usually abundant seed production. They just pour out seeds. Yellow star thistle, for instance, a good sized plant, can put out 30,000 seeds. And the seed banking is very common. This is where the seeds do not all germinate in the next year. They wait in the ground, staying viable, sometimes buried for a long time, and will come up in another season. This gives them a way of getting past some of our really nasty years where nothing really survives well, so that they can come up in better years later. And the most do not sprout from the roots. I don't know how many people come out on a weeding thing and says, oh, you got to get the roots. No, you don't. All you have to do on these plants is cut them off below the cotyledons and somewhere just below that and the root, and they die. They cannot resprout. And that's one of the advantages of knowing that they can't do that. It's a lot less work and less disturbance.
Is that just for annuals, or because some plant, I don't know.
Well, an awful lot of plants that are perennials and some biannuals will resprout. Teasel is one of them. Have you ever seen teasel?
No.
Okay, teasel's that one that has the big cylindrical spiky flowers. You got all the thorns on it. Okay, that one, if you don't get it 4 inches below the ground, that root will resprout. And that's a biannual. Normally they grow for 1 year and then they bloom the next. Your structure and our treatment for annuals is prevent them from going to seed. In other words, you try and get them all before they flower and go to seed. And you want to also go back year after year to deplete the same seed bank back to zero. And removing the crown from the root is the best way to kill them. Okay, biannuals, 2 seasons. The first season, they're a rosette. Second season, they shoot up into this gigantic plant, flower, and die. These are really lousy garden plants. Nobody likes to have them in their garden because the thing they call it is first they're small, then they're flat, then they're huge, and then they're dead. So it's just not a good thing for the garden. They commonly store a lot of material in the roots, good storage of food and stuff, because what they do is on that second year when they flower, they bring all that up and put it into the seeds. During that flowering period, they have a point at which the plant declines. The root actually has sent up everything it has from the ground. And if you hit them then, they've lost that ability to resprout. Okay, once again, prevent seed production. For teasel, we go out and you cut off the blooms before they produce seed. And deplete the seed bank. These also have long seed banks. And what we often do with the teasel is you wait until they have brought up most of the material from the roots, and the roots shrink. And then you can pull out that tap root very easily. Just comes right out with a pull. And that kills the plant and stops production of seeds. And removing the crown from the root, actually you just have to get the root out, or make sure that you cut low enough to cut all of the top. Poison hemlock has an ability actually to make stem underground that looks like root. And if you look at it, you'll see this cap that is actually stem that's underground. Below that's the root. And if you leave any part of that stem on the top of the root, that will resprout.
So we had two questions. One was,
Sure.
What is a seed bank? So
Seed bank is the seeds that go into the ground and remain there for a number of years.
Okay.
And each plant has the ability to do it. One of the worst ones for seed bank is the brooms. French broom, Scotch broom. We don't know how long it is, because all of these research that's ever been done runs out of money before the seed bank's gone. So what you'll see in the papers is greater than whatever their length of time that the money came. And the longest I've ever seen is 20 years.
Wow.
We have been working at it at Edgewood. Some of these places have been 30 years without a blooming plant, and they still come up regularly every year. Just a moment, I'll stop that. So then we get to the real toughies, the perennials. These live for more than 2 seasons. They can be herbaceous or woody. Sometimes they die back to the ground and then come up from the roots again the next season. Extensive below ground structures and reserves that they can have. If you get one of these that has rhizomes that are underground, they can spread out into this huge plant, and all you see is this thing's coming out. One of the worst ones we have is a weird plant called skeleton weed. And this thing is a tiny rosette in the spring, but then it shoots up this kind of wiry upper part to bloom. And you cannot kill that by even taking out 16 inches of the root underground. So you go down 16 inches and remove that, it'll still come back. And seed banks can be extremely long, like I talked about the brooms, very difficult to control without herbicides. So we don't do too many perennials.
Somebody asked about dandelions. Where would they fall in this category?
They're a short-lived perennial, is what they are. They're not a true biannual, but they tend to survive through the seasons. I'd say their maximum lifespan is about 3 years. We don't actually have too many dandelions here, by the way. If you look at what looks like our dandelion, it is actually hawksbeard.
And do you remove the entire root or just the crown?
On dandelions, you better take out a lot of the root.
How about the hawksbury?
Yes, hawksbeard's the same way. And what we do with hawksbeard is it has very wiry inflorescence. So if you wait until it starts to bloom and the root's starting to get thin, you can pull the whole thing out. The whole root comes straight out. So you just go around pulling them out like that. It's the easiest way to get them. If you have to dig them out, it's pain. Once again, cutting off the shoots doesn't work. Herbicides are probably the best thing to do. Currently, what we've done is we map out all the skeleton weed we can find. We tell the county when we think it's ready to be sprayed, and they come out and spray it for us. We used to have the county ag department do it, but they've stopped doing that. So now it's going to be the county parks. Hope they can take care of it. So you have a place full of weeds. The left there is Detrichia graveolens. The right is yellow star thistle. And this is what it used to look like in Edgewood County Park. These are rangers standing in a field of yellow star. And I think I know what to do now about this. We go to learn about them. So this is my favorite book for checking weeds. Weeds of California has all kinds of information on their lifestyle, their distribution. It's a well-done book, and it even has a little CD that comes with it that you can stuff in and look at pictures of these weeds at all stages of their life. It is for sale still. You can probably get it out of the library, but most people probably want to do something different. So there are apps. Now, I don't use any of these apps because I don't have a phone, but people who do have a phone have been using these apps out in Edgewood. They often come up with a pretty good ID. There are lots of different ones. I would recommend you try the ones until you get the one that you like the best. I can't recommend any, so just put it in Google and say weed apps, and you'll get this. Here's the weed app store. ID weeds apps for Apple and picture identifier. It's really nice. So you don't even have to take a picture. Most of the people just put their phone down and face it towards the weed, and it'll tell them what it is. Another place to go find out what it is iNaturalist. Any of you use iNaturalist or heard of it? Okay, this is a organization. You just become a member of it. You get your account, you put up seeds, and experts like me come around and say, that's yellow star thistle. Now, sometimes you might have to wait a long time for them to actually see. I was just noticing that there are places on the eastern side of the Sierras where people are putting up the picture of this. It hasn't been over there before. They're not familiar with it, and nobody is IDing it for them. So I went over and started going all over the western part. I even had people down in Chile and Argentina who were having this weed pop up and say, "What's this?" So that is another resource you can use. And then there's Calypsy. Now, this is the point I think I'm going to try going live on their website. This is their front page of their website. Calypsy is the California Invasive Plant Council. They're a nonprofit, and their whole job is getting information out about invasive plants and how to take care of them. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to go see if I can get to their website. Okay. What just happened there? Calypsy. Okay, somehow the site went off.
While Paul's looking it up, I know he has volunteered to lead us in the open space and walk around and talk to us about the various invasive species there. So sometime we'll take him up on that opportunity.
Okay. It looks like I can share this. And do you see Calypsy's website again?
Yes.
Okay. And is it changed now when I just touch plants and says plants A to Z?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to click that. And A to Z has all of the pictures of all of the weeds from A to Z that are on their inventory. These are the worst weeds you can think of, but they're all on here. So I'm going to go down to my favorite one. All right. Everybody see the little picture of Centaurea solstatinus? That's solstitalis, yellow star thistle. Okay, I'm going to click on it. Come on. All right. Oh, there we go. And you get a resource thing that tells you all about it. Plant assessment forms, IDs cards that you can take out in the field, management guides, all of this information for yellow star thistle. So one of the ones I did was I went to, or got one of these yellow star management guides. And this was what we used to do yellow star thistle in Edgewood, is went to that. Also, we have the inventory here. Show you that. Okay. Come on.
Someone asked why yellow star thistle was your favorite.
Oh, didn't you see the picture of it back there when I had the, let me go back to talk.
The Edgewood picture with all
It was
those, yeah.
all over that. There was 105 acres infested with yellow star, and it was just an incredible mess. It forms monocultures, so there's no other plants there when it's there, and it leaves all these dead skeletons which can catch fire. It's just #1 weed. It has rated very, very high. See if I get it this way. Trying to get it to show you the inventory. It is considered by many the wicked weed of the West. It's also very spiny. It has, all the spines are on the flower heads and they're needle sharp. Here we go. Here's the inventory. When you start looking at this, notice how many A's there are, B's. We have a ton of invasive species out there. It is just awful. Here's my favorite. Yellow star thistle. You'll notice it's rated high. That means it does a lot of ecological damage. It causes a lot of problems for people in agriculture. It is just a terrible weed. And let's see what it is. It's also rated by the CDFA, the California Department of Food and Agriculture, as a seaweed, meaning they can't do anything about it. It's just beyond their control. Now, one of the things here, if you click on this part, that takes you to Weed Mapper. And Weed Mapper will show you what quadrangles yellow star is in. You'll notice it's almost everywhere, including out on the Channel Islands. It's now moving over into the eastern part of the Sierras and out into the Great Basin. It is extremely invasive, very, very bad. Yeah.
So when you got rid of it out of Edgewood, did the natural native plants just take over? Did you seed, or what did you have to do there?
I'm getting to that. When
Oh,
when I get to the end of the talk, you will see we have beautiful stuff coming up after getting rid of this. It was a really good thing to get rid of. Okay, let's see if I can get back to the inventory. One of the things that was interesting about the inventory is when we first got it, there was a weed that we were finding to be really bad at Edgewood, and that was Carduus pycnocephalus, Italian thistle. Wasn't even in the inventory. Well, what do you do when you have a weed that looks really bad to you? I mean, it's spreading all over the place and it's not in the inventory. Well, right here is the evaluation form. So you can fill out these assessment forms. And the assessors can be anybody who wants to do it. And you can go through and fill this out with what you think your weed is, get an evaluation, a score. And as you can see, it's a moderate weed considered. It's worse here in the Bay Area. Not all weeds are equal everywhere. So if you look at Italian thistle, it's a terrible weed here, but you get to the Central Basin or Valley and really isn't that bad. They also have, by the way, resources, and they have a newsletter. You can go back and look at all of the old newsletters with stories about weeds. The symposiums, I've attended quite a few of the symposiums, and you meet people and you talk about weeds for 3 days and go on field trips, and you just have a great time and learn all sorts of things. And they also have, where is it? Maybe it's another. They have a really good weed book. And that's the volunteer resources. I think it's in here. It's the handbook for weed workers handbook. Now they don't have the weed workers handbook in print anymore, but the PDF is here. And I recommend you all get it or download it and read it, because it gives you all sorts of inventory. Here it is, right here. Number 3 on resources for, and when you click that, you will get, this is what it looked like when it was in print, but you can get the PDF, read it, and use it. It really is a fine book that they put out for us. So I'm going to stop showing that and go back to the program. Let's see. I want to get back, share that. And use slideshow. All right, now I have to get back to where I wanted to be. So I go through all the Calypsy stuff that you saw without live. A lot of Calypsy stuff. All right, at this point I want to talk about methods. And one of the ones you'll hear about is the Bradley method. So when you get started weeding, you pick the weed you want to do. You cannot get everything all at once. This is why Yellow Star was chosen. It was really bad. We saw it was coming in and destroying habitat. It was threatening rare plants. So the first thing you do is evaluate what you have and which one's the one you think is the worst. You might not know what it is, but you can tell worst weeds are the ones that are everywhere and how they're moving through and threatening things. So the Bradley method tells you don't try to do the entire thing at once. You choose the places where it's best to start. So here's what Yellow Star looked like in Edgewood. These were all the places infested, like you saw in that picture of the rangers standing knee deep. The only places it didn't grow were in the woodlands and out here on the main serpentine blocks. The soil is too toxic for them to grow. So where did we start doing this? Where did we start? Was right here. So all this yellow or blue-green here, that's Yellow Star thistle before it's bloomed. Right over here is where we took our stand, because just beyond that is a rare plant out there. And we thought this was invading from west to east. The east is to the right here. It was going to go over that hill and down in there and kill all those plants. So we took a stand here and we started pulling. At that time, I could sit down and pull 1,000 plants and not clear much more than a square foot or so. You'd spend all the weeding session and you might push it back 3 or 4 feet. And that was it. So we began to look at the management, and that was the integrated pest management. This is yellow star as we saw it. And the flower is the important part because, I was going to say here, we're using an insect. While I was pulling at that time, usually weeds do not have anything that eats them. They're completely unharmed. So one day I'm pulling on that wall of yellow star, and I looked and something's eating this. This isn't fresh. And so I went back home and looked up what might eat it, and found out they had been releasing what they're called biocontrols. These are insects or diseases, anything that's biological that it will attack this plant and kill it or reduce its seeds. And that's what I was seeing, was the first one starting to come in Edgewood from where they had released it out on the triangle, which is that area across the freeway from Edgewood. You'll note this one seed head over here that's kind of dark and looks kind of funny. And you see over here, this little wilted area. These are being attacked by a weevil that was released. And that weevil, well, this is the weevil. It's the hairy star thistle weevil. This is a picture of it being forced to eat a weed that it isn't designed to eat. It's trying to eat tocolote, which is kind of like yellow star's little sister. It's not quite the same plant, but it's close enough. It was trying to feed on it. There are 3 ones that are really good. This is Catarrhelia succinea. This one is the false peacock fly. And this one's an interesting story because what they were trying to release was the peacock fly. And they got all the tests done. They don't release these insects without testing to see that they won't go out and eat everything out there, including your crops. They want to make sure it's going to target the weed they want. So they tested the peacock fly. It got approved. They released it and they waited for it to work. All of a sudden, coming out of Oregon, there were huge numbers of these flies. And wow, that's great. Let's go up and see what it is. And it turned out it was the false peacock fly. The difference between them is that the one has 4 dots on its back and the other has 2 dots. The 4-dot one was much better at reproducing in California. It took off like crazy. Within 2 years, it was almost everywhere in California. And fortunately for the people who released it, it only eats yellow star and tocolote. It touches nothing else. So it isn't a disaster, but it is one of our best biocontrols. So those 2, the hairy star thistle weevil and the false peacock fly, do most of the damage to the yellow star seed heads. This is another one. This is the gall fly. Europhora, and I'm not sure how you pronounce the second one, but it lays its eggs in the seed head and a gall will form in the seed head instead of seeds. So it reduces the seeds by doing that. And they're about to release the crown weevil. They've actually released 7 species of biocontrols on yellow star. What has it done? Well, it kind of decreases the number of plants, but it doesn't decrease the area in which it grows. When we first got these biocontrols, I did notice yellow star was pushed off of marginal habitat, but that didn't last. The reason why is biocontrols are biology. And once you start introducing an insect in there, things are going to start learning to eat it. So the spiders came back into the yellow star. The rodents were now cutting off the yellow star and taking the seed heads, what they were looking for was not the seeds to eat, they were eating the insect larvae inside the heads. So it reduced the number of the biocontrols, and the yellow star came back into those marginal areas. What we would find is instead of getting 1,000 plants per square foot, we might get 2 plants per square foot, but they got bigger. So we didn't really reduce the number of seeds that yellow star produced or really control it. But the one thing it did is the biocontrols are most active in the early summer when the first flowers come out. And so they delay the time that the first seeds drop, because most of the first heads are destroyed. And so that gives us an extra month to pull the yellow star with no seed production, which is a big benefit, you know. Also, biocontrols don't have to be introduced. This is the Genista moth, and what it's feeding on there is French broom. It's a native insect. What it was eating before was it was eating lupins, but it found the broom also edible, and sometimes you will find areas where this moth actually defoliates the broom, completely eats every leaf off of it. I don't know if it's doing enough damage to control it, but it certainly is setting it back a little bit. And here's a good example of what happens. All of these heads here that you see that look kind of funny are damaged by our biocontrols. So this plant is not producing a whole lot of seeds. Also, we used to bag everything. And I started doing research on the idea that maybe we don't want to carry that all around, because I'd have places where people would bag it up, move it over where the trucks could pick it up, and then you get a new colony of yellow star because the bags leak seeds. But I also thought about it and thought, you know, I never see yellow star growing in the woods. What happens if we pile these dead ones underneath the trees? I tried it and nothing comes up. Even if they're loaded with seeds, we got nothing. So we began to do that instead. We'd either pile them like this out in the meadow in particular spots. They don't do very well in a pile like that, or put them under the trees. With the piles, we know where the seeds are, and under the trees, we don't have to worry about them. And that has worked. We have, I think, increased our efficiency of pulling this stuff by 50% because we're not fooling around with bags and moving them around and all that work. Oh, the big thing that we did was find out that mowing works. So that area I was fighting earlier on, that became mow site 1. We got this book and it said, yellow star thistle, if you mow it right at a particular time, you will kill most plants. So we tried it and it works. The trick is 2 to 5%. So you look over the field and you say, are 2 to 5% of those plants blooming? If they are, it's time to mow. This occurs about 2 weeks either side of the solstice. The plant usually blooms right on the solstice, so depending on the weather and conditions, it can be either 2 weeks ahead or 2 weeks behind. If you can get your agency to mow at that time, you get excellent control. But if you don't get them to mow at that time, you don't get excellent control. And we had a hard time getting people to have their equipment on Edgewood exactly when we wanted to, until the parks actually bought a piece of equipment and we had the rangers mow when I said to mow, and we got good control and knocked this off. The thing about it is you also couldn't, you know, this is expensive to mow. So maybe 8 acres, 10 acres a year, we would get grants to do it. And over time, we had all these, grants to do it, but they would dry up and during recessions, and they would, the county couldn't afford it, all sorts of things. So we would have these surges when we'd get mowing and we'd be able to knock off some acreage, and then years when we only could hand pull. And then we found out, this is beyond the 2 to 5%, if you have plants that still have the rosette on them, instead of grown up spindly like that, and you cut like this, that perennializes this plant. It survives. It's been cut too early. Like I said, for a perennial, if you cut them at the wrong time, they can survive, and you get this, a flat plant with more flower heads than even these tall ones. So you don't want to do that. So you avoid mowing at the wrong time. You want to make sure these rosettes have faded and the root has begun to senesce. Okay, another thing about weeding is early detection, rapid response. Detrichia is a weed that showed up in the late 90s here in California. It was in Alviso for a while, and then it got into the Shoreline Amphitheater's parking lot. These plants are sticky and it produces a ton of seeds which stick to things. From that parking lot, people drove the weeds out into this countryside, and this began to expand at a rate of about 100 miles per year. You would go to a Calypsy conference and you could tell where Detrichia had finally showed up, that they had not seen it before. And early detection was what we did. We saw this coming. I knew it was coming into Edgewood, and we took steps to hit it as fast as we could. This was a small colony I found in the bushes. I pulled it all. And this one, by the way, does not have a seed bank. If you get every plant, which is a little hard to do because little tiny 1-inch tall plants can still boom and produce seeds, you have to get them all. If you get them all before they bloom, you will not have plants there next year. So that's a really beneficial thing. Is everybody here?
Yep, we're here.
Okay, I was worried. I wasn't hearing anything.
Oh, you're doing great.
All right, so what happened at Edgewood, we started the mowing in 1998 to 2000. And this was that year, the .com was just going great and lots of money, and then it dried up. So for 2 years, 3 years, we got no mowing. Then 2003, they started the WMAs up again. That's the weed management areas. And the CDFA and the legislature put this money into them that you could get grants to get mowing. So we applied for the grants. We got $50,000 and we went in mowing from 2003 to 2008. And in 2009, we had that big crash, the subprime interest and credit default swap recession. So that dried up the money. And we didn't start getting them back again when 2015, the county parks was taken out of public works. They bought a mower and I got them to mow. So all of this progress helped. No mowing, it was all hand pull, which is slow progress. We would make only a few acres a year. With mowing, we could probably do 8 to 10 acres a year. And some areas can only be hand pulled. You got rocky areas, steep slopes, things like that. All hand pull has to be done there. The entire project is 23 years. Last year was the first year we got all of the yellow star out before it went to seed. The first time we'd ever done that. And now we're working on the seed bank. And anybody want to guess how long the seed bank of yellow star is? 10 years. So we've got a 10-year treatment to get it all before it's all known to be totally gone. You won't see it now, but we do, because we see the little seedlings coming up and we kill them all. We try to kill them all before they go to seed, which isn't until August 1st, approximately. So this is showing the first sites on the north side that we mowed. In 2001 is the picture of the rangers standing in it knee deep. And here is me standing there. In my right hand are all the yellow star I could find in that location. So the seed bank hadn't been cleared out, but you can see the difference in the cover. It's just all grasses now, a lot of forbs. Hayfield tar plant is common in there. We have one place. Oh, I'll talk about that later. But other species we have under management, we had olive trees that were starting to pop out of the woods, and we took to going after those. We found that we could use Roundup on them. If you cut into the plant and put the Roundup in concentrate in that groove, it would go up and down the plant and kill them.
Sorry, is fennel is invasive?
Oh yes, fennel's a nasty one too. That's a perennial, so it has a very difficult root to kill. Bristly ox, these are all ones, by the way, that we have essentially controlled very well in Edgewood. Bristly ox tongue is out in the wetlands. We have that one down now that we just have to keep going out and looking for it and make sure no new ones come in. Teasel, still find a few every year. French broom hasn't bloomed since about, I guess the last one was about 2000, but we go out every year to every site and pull all the seedlings.
Oh, for
Flowering
French broom?
plum, French broom.
For French broom, do you have to pull the roots, or no? It's not one
Well,
of those?
all you have to do is actually break that one off. That
Okay.
one's one that doesn't sprout from the root. What is it? Spanish broom sprouts from the root.
Okay.
Scotch broom doesn't. See, all of these are different. You have to learn every one of these stupid plants. One of the things about French broom you can do too is you can strip the bark and pull it down and make sure it gets down to the root. You can tell when you've gotten that, the bark turns from green to light white. And when you've done that, you know you've gotten it. And once you've done that, the plant will die.
Man, I gotta say you're pissing off all the cooks and chefs in the audience when you say olive and fennel.
Well, I'm sorry about the olives. I walk around in the Santa Cruz Mountains and I see olives everywhere. Jasper Ridge has tons of them. And I know that within a few years, they're going to start popping out of the canopy, and that's just going to make people really upset. You can grow olives. You just have to eat all the fruit. Don't let the birds eat them, because that's why they spread around. And fennel, if everybody wants to eat that, go right ahead. Any other
What do you
ones?
think of ivy? Is ivy ivy is annoying? Is it?
Yes, that's an invasive too. I
It
don't have
is?
that on the
Okay.
list.
Just wondering.
We actually have over 90 species that we have controlled.
Wow.
And the
okay.
ivy was actually a lot of fun because ivy grows up the trees.
Yeah.
And once it grows up the trees, you just go and cut that off and paint the herbicide on the thing and it's gone. That's all you have to do. However, you always have to keep going out and looking for the seedlings. They take a while to find something to climb up, but on the forest floor, you find them and you pull for feet if you don't go often enough to get them. I am amazed at how many plants we take out. Oh, here, Italian thistle, toccolodi, and many others. Toccolodi is on my list now as these two, toccolodi and Italian thistle, are really hard. Toccolodi is going to be a fight just like yellow star. And I used to leave it alone, but then I realized that there were certain plants that were dying because of this. I found this out at Jasper Ridge. We had one spot where chia, anybody know what chia is? Salvia columbari. They had one spot in Jasper Ridge where it grew. And it was just declining and declining. And we looked around, boy, there's a lot of tocolote in here. So we took out some tocolote, came roaring back. Did the same thing at Edgewood. You never saw it along the trails because tocolote was on the trails. Take it out, chia comes in. So I'd rather have chia than tocolote. And Italian thistle is a real bear because it grows in the woods, in the poison oak. The seeds are really easy to disperse in the wind. They just flow in. It's a tough one.
I don't want to interrupt you, but does anybody else have any questions? Because we're at 5 minutes to. And so I wanted to open it up for questions.
I wanted to show you one of the things that we
Sure.
found. This is what happened when yellow star went around. We got this. This is narrow leaf milkweed. Thousands of plants came up. And you know what that is? That's a monarch butterfly chrysalis. So we have created a huge area for the monarch butterflies at Edgewood.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I think it is great. Also, other butterflies are there, the Ackman blue. And here's something about what the seeds we have. These are seedlings. Okay, I'll stop here. Answer questions.
If there are any, if not, you could 5 minutes.
Yeah. Anybody know what that is?
No.
That's a eucalyptus. That's a seedling eucalyptus. This is how we keep eucalyptus from coming in. We have them at Edgewood, but anytime I see a seedling, pull it out. It's much easier to pull that than cut down a tree that's 100 feet tall.
Wow.
Isn't that cool looking?
It is.
Weird looking seed.
I guess nobody has any questions, but anyway, this has been really, really interesting. I like that.
This was up in Washington. They have a Canadian-US thing. I had to take a picture of it.
That's good. Well, I don't want to keep people late, but thank you, Paul. It's been really good. And I know you offered to lead us on something. We'll try to find a time that we could do that, and we'll put out a message to people.
Yeah, I can take you through, show you how Edgewood has changed from, horrible masses of weeds to what it is today.
And if you could walk with us in our open space and
I
help
could
us,
do that too.
That would be appreciated as well. And thanks. So go ahead.
Which open space, by the way?
Well, I probably
Water Dog Lake. open
Water
space.
Dog, did you say?
That's
Yeah,
that's
Water
a
Dog,
prize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of Durka in there.
Right. Well, it sounds like we need to do a guided hike with you out there, and you can help us help make some suggestions about what needs to happen where. I know we've got some folks attending this evening that are interested in that and well versed in some of that as well. So it'd be great to get some good minds together to see what we can do and sort of rally our volunteer corps to help us out there in the open space. This has been very, very informative. Thank you so much, Paul, for your time and sharing your expertise.
I'm sorry I ran over. It's just,
Oh,
there's so
no.
much in this.
No, it's great. It's great. Well, thanks a lot. So just a reminder to other people, we're going to be doing these talks second Thursday of every month at 7. Starting next month, depending on COVID, we're going to be able to do it in person at the Belmont Library and on Zoom. So you have your choice. You could do either. And our next talk is going to be Rethink Waste. So that those are the people that are responsible for composting, recycling, and garbage in San Mateo County. And I'm sure people will have a lot of questions for that. And we will go ahead.
Questions in the chat here.
In the chat.
Yeah, I have one Perethian. That is actually an insecticide.
Yeah, you were talking about using insecticides and herbicides, and I was wondering, I remember a long, long time ago when I first started doing gardening, the organic gardeners were all into pyrethrins, and then I started hearing some stuff about them not being so hot.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about what it is now.
You know, you really don't want to get too much permethrin around. And, you know, the best control for insects is to make sure that they are, if they're native insects, that they have all their predators around. And if you kill the predators and the parasites, that's why they go out of control.
And I was confused. I was thinking now that it was an herbicide. Of course, no, it's
It's an
it's an
insecticide.
insecticide. I got confused.
Yeah, the major one we use is Roundup. There are a few that I'm trying to use some Garlon now to kill some Tree of Heaven, because that stuff's really tough. And I think it's working.
I didn't think Roundup was good to use.
Actually, you know, there's all this hoo-ha about it being a carcinogen. Absolutely no evidence. It's just the jury in Europe awarded people for, you know, who knows what they've gotten into. You know, you really can't tell with cancer. It is, most cancers cause damage to genetic material. They cause, you know, they're a, what is the term for it? It makes mutations. Roundup doesn't. You put it in any dish, doesn't cause it. It only is, how it works is it blocks a enzyme needed to make an amino acid that only plants make. You don't make it, you get it from plants. And that causes the plant to do funny things and it kills itself.
Oh, okay. I didn't. And I just heard Roundup bad. That was my.
Yeah, well, an awful lot of people, actually, I think the problem is Monsanto bad. And Monsanto does a lot of bad stuff. Their Roundup ready crops, you know, that's just nuts. I don't like that.
I ask
Monsanto
a
bad is another
question?
topic, is a topic for another
There's a
night.
topic another time, yes.
Right.
Can I ask
Okay.
a question about oak tree moths?
What's that?
May I ask a question about oak tree moths? We
Yes,
have quite a few of those in Belmont.
Yep.
Are they still suggesting to spray for those?
I would suggest not. What you get is, these are the oak moth has these periods when it just explodes in an area. Nobody knows why. The oaks are unharmed. They defoliate them, but then the next year they're gone. So it's something you should just tolerate.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, if you've ever wanted to learn why caterpillars are good things, what is it? Douglas Ptolemy's talks, Bringing Nature Home. Birds need caterpillars. If you don't have caterpillars, you don't have birds.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yes.
What brought you into this whole study? Like, what motivated you to start this?
Okay, when I first arrived here, I wanted to learn the plants. I joined the Native Plant Society. They had a docent program at Edgewood. So I thought, oh, that'd be a great way to learn the plants. Went out there, found people were weeding, and I started doing that. I had done some in Pennsylvania, restoration, where you had rare plants and we were trying to keep invasives out. But then I really got into it here.
That's great. Yeah. What advice would you give to people who are starting out in this whole thing? Like, if you could say one thing to your past self, what would it be? Join
some people who do it. I don't know if you've heard of Grassroots Ecology. It's a nonprofit that's it's in Palo Alto, mostly south of here, but they do a few San Mateo County sites, and they take you out and you have people who know what they're doing, teaching you the plants and how to remove them. So it's little work days when we get rid of the COVID.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much for your responses and your time.
Yeah. Also, MidPenn does these too. They have great programs.
Okay, well, thank you. This has been
Can I-
great.
May I ask one last question?
Sure.
My last question also has to do with oak trees and sudden oak death.
Oh.
Do you have any comments or thoughts on that?
Okay, sudden oak death is really horrible. I don't know exactly what you can do other than removing all the bays from around your oak trees. Actually, it only kills black oaks and intermediate oaks. So the valley oak, the blue oak, the scrub oak, and the leather oak are immune to it. They never get it.
So how
However-
about toyons? Are they also as like bays? Do we remove the toyons or just the
they're-
bays?
The bay is the one that really, it has it in the leaves and it has it elevated around the trees, and
Yeah.
it puts a load of it on the oak trees and often kills them. And the bays
Thank you
shouldn't
very
be
much.
where they are anyway. It's the fire reduction is allowing the bays to grow way out of where they normally would grow, which is found in riparian areas.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. By the way,
I
I think maybe the sudden oak death is going to be a thing that we only see for a given period of time, because I never see any young oaks getting it. It's only the old oaks.
So on our property in Belmont, we have 30 oak trees that are mature, some up to 300 years old.
Yep, that's the ones
And
that'll kill.
Yeah, and we use a tree service, and they say that about half of our trees, 15 of the large trees have it. And we've removed 3 trees just in the last year, just because there's nothing else you can do. But we have been there's an immunization they put out in November.
Yep.
So we're trying that right now, but I don't know. It's a tough one.
Portola Valley, it's actually a fertilizer, a phosphate.
Yep,
Yep. And they've been using that along all the trees in the area. And there's a couple up on Coal Mine Bridge. They lost a bunch of really big old trees up there, but they saved one, and it's really nice still.
yeah.
Or
It's it's extending the life of a lot of ours. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but I think it will only kill the ones that never saw it when they were young. The young ones, apparently their bark isn't open, so they can't get in. And when they start to mature and it doesn't have very big cracks, they start seeing it and they start to fight it off, and that it just never quite gets them.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Okay. I think that was the last question. Thank you again very much. And for everyone, there is a short survey if you want to take it. You should have an email with that survey in your inbox. Thanks again, Paul. This was great.
Okay.
And hope to see you sometime in the park. We'll arrange something.
We'll arrange something.
Great. Thanks.
I'm
Thanks,
really-
Bridget.
Good night, everybody. Thanks to everybody
Good
who
night.
joined us this
Thanks.
evening. Good night. Stay
Good night.
safe.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Paul.
Good night.